help me bring out the symbol of our best, the nation's #1 mascot, the Penn State Nittany Lion. We want the 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 Lion.
Welcome to Football Letter Live. Tonight we welcome letterman Anthony Scarato, who at Penn State earned all Big Ten status twice at the safety position. We also welcome Indiana chapter president Todd Troup, who will give us a preview of what his chapter is planned for this week and share how the Indiana chapter unites Penn Staters and the Hoosier State. Football Letter Live is member supported, and we're so grateful to have your support. If you're a Penn Stater, you belong in the Penn State Alumni Association, and if you love Penn State, you're in the right place. This is Football Letter Live. Welcome into Football Letter Live. Another great show lined up for you tonight. We're going to talk with Todd Troup. He is the president of the Indiana chapter. We will see him tomorrow night in Bloomington for our mixer with Penn Staters who travel out to Indiana to cheer on the Nittany Lions. We also have Anthony Scarato, two-time All Big Ten safety and a 2009 Penn State grad. I'm joined as always by my co-host, John Petishnock. John, how are you tonight?
I'm doing well, Paul. Good evening. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. Doing well. We've got another nice episode on tonight. Looking ahead, going to a place that I think we both are a big fan of, Bloomington. Still a lot to play for Penn State football. 10 wins on the table, as we mentioned in the letter this week. So, yeah, looking forward to kickstarting the weekend tonight with Todd and Anthony.
Yeah, let's put that Ohio State game in the rearview mirror and get back on track in Bloomington as we look to go 7-2. You're right. The pathway to 10-2 is still there. It's still open to us. A Rose Bowl pathway is still there for us if a lot of things go our way, but it still looks like a 10-2 Penn State team makes a New Year's Six Bowl.
That's true. And Penn State will be favored in the last 4 games. I'm just looking at it from the perspective, if you're Indiana, if you're Maryland, and you've got Penn State coming off this loss, Rutgers, Maryland, they view Penn State as their Super Bowl. And so certainly if Penn State goes ahead, takes care of business in November, college football is chaos every year in November. And so who's to say what's going to happen? If Penn State keeps on winning, I think, ranked 15th in the initial college football playoff rankings, go 10-2, you would think that they would be close to a top 10 ranking, and who knows how far the other teams will fall, based on how they do in November.
Yeah, you're seeing some great pictures from this Saturday in Beaver Stadium. It was a Chamber of Commerce kind of day weather-wise, and the stripe out looked as good as ever, although there were a lot of I did see a lot of specks of red in Beaver Stadium this weekend.
Yeah, there were a few, we've seen Ohio State a number of years now here and in Columbus. And so, there are some fans that you sort of recognize year after year. But you know what, the Ohio State fans that I saw, they enjoyed the game. I actually spoke with an Ohio State fan after the game, and he traveled in from Boston. I think the noon kickoff helped. I think they were glad to come to Beaver Stadium and have it not be a night game. So, I think our fans are always hospitable, and despite the rivalry on the field, I think we always enjoy, meeting fellow college football fans. And when they come into State College, we want to make sure that they have a good time and go home and have a good story to tell, hopefully with a loss. But either way, we'll do our part off the field.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Looking forward to Indiana. Indiana is a solid team. They've had some bumps along the way, but certainly could be a trap game for the Nittany Lions as we come off the loss to Ohio State, right? And it's always want to guard against making 1 loss, 2 losses. Big talk this week around Happy Valley is who's going to play quarterback for the Nittany Lions. John, do you have any thoughts about what's going on in the rumor mill?
I would expect to see Sean Clifford start. For what it's worth, I think that's the right decision. We said in the letter this week that, next year will be here when next year gets here. There's still a lot that can be achieved this year. And, as you can imagine, James Franklin's been asked a lot of questions. And I think the reason, if he does get frustrated, the stance that he takes is, look, just if they start Drew Aller, they're not saying, okay, this season's a wash. Like, they're 10-2 is very much realistic. College football coaches are maniacal about wanting to win. And I wanted to ask James this question this week, but I didn't get a chance to get over to practice. But I would say when he's going through the game plan, everybody who's with this program, whether it's a senior, a freshman, a coach, a support staff member, they're all here because they want to be part of Penn State football. They're not thinking about what can we do next year. They're thinking about what can we do to win this Saturday? What can we do to maximize our time with Penn State football this year? They're not looking at it from the perspective of let's get this, certain player some playing time. And so, you owe it to the people who are with Penn State football this year. They want to be here. Do everything you can to win on Saturday. And that's always been the mindset that this team has employed.
Yeah, look, when people have asked me this question, I say, James Franklin is amongst the most competitive people that I've ever met, right? He would not put an inferior product on the field, right? So if he thought that Drew Aller gives us the best chance to win, Drew would be out there, right? He just, I know he's loyal, but he also wants to win more than anything else. So I don't know. Is that your take too, John? Like, why wouldn't he be putting the best guy out there?
Right. I mean, due respect to every fan, like nobody wants to win more than James Franklin. Right. So he is not going to do, if he thinks he can gain an edge by waking up 5 seconds faster, he's going to do it, or take this left turn instead of a right turn to the football stadium. He's going to do it. For what it's worth, I feel for Christian Veilleux. I think that guy is good. I think wherever he plays, I think he's going to be a superstar. He did great last year against Rutgers when everybody was hooked up to IVs. And so I know it's Sean Clifford, Drew Aller, but I still have a soft spot for Christian Veilleux, and I've talked with him a little bit, and just think he's an awesome kid, and he's been handling this really well because through no fault of his own, he's just kind of the forgotten guy. So, but yeah, I would say, look, Penn State has every intention of winning Saturday. They have every intention of winning Saturday, whether it's quarterback, defensive tackle, whatever. They're putting the best team out there that they can possibly get each week.
Absolutely. Yeah, you bring up Christian. I think we're entering an era in college football with this transfer portal where the third string quarterback is a different name every single year, right? Because that person's likely to enter the portal and go try to get playing time somewhere else. So it'll be interesting to see what decision he makes at the end of the season, and kind of where he goes. But he's been, like you said, a locker room favorite, a fan favorite, and you're pronouncing his last name right, which is something that doesn't always happen in Nittany Nation.
Yeah, it's Veilleux, not Veilleux. And I think even like James Franklin was calling him Veilleux last year. So we got your back, Christian. But, talking about football, big weekend going to Indiana, Bloomington. The Roar Tour is coming to Bloomington. And so we've been sharing that link. It's free admission. We ask that you sign up ahead of time. It'll save you time on the day of the pep rally. Members will get a commemorative lanyard with this year's roster and schedule. Blue Band will be there, cheerleaders, Nittany Lion. If you're traveling to Bloomington and you want to get your picture with the Nittany Lion, the Roar Tour is the place to be. And so Vince will drop that in the chat, and we've been sharing it on our social channels. And so looking forward to tomorrow night, the welcome event, and then Saturday, the pep rally and the game. And looking forward to coming back from Bloomington, hopefully with a W.
Absolutely. Look, and things don't slow down at the Alumni Association in November. We're headed to Indiana with the Roar Tour. We'll be at Rutgers later in the month, right? Cyber Tuesdays coming up. Check your email box for your opportunity to support the Alumni Association on Cyber Tuesday and Giving Monday. Giving Cyber Monday and Giving Tuesday. Sorry. I got those flipped up. But hey, when you get emails from us, just respond. And that's what we're looking for. So, hey, John, great show lined up tonight. Let's go ahead and bring Todd Troop onto the show. Todd is the president of the Indiana chapter, 1986 Penn State grad. He's currently a IT project manager with more than 35 years of experience in that industry. We'll see Todd tomorrow night, but let's talk to him and find out what's in store for us when we come out and visit. Todd, how are you tonight?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on the show.
Absolutely. Maybe a good place to start is kind of share some information about the Indiana chapter, how much area you cover. Indiana's a pretty big state for us to have one chapter. And what are some of your signature projects?
Yeah, thanks, Paul. So we have over 900 alumni on our list. We've been up to sometimes at 1,700. We certainly can't reach out and interact, unfortunately, with all of those folks because of the fact that we only have one chapter, and it's really, we call it the Central Indiana chapter. So it's really Indianapolis based. So it's hard for us to reach the top left, top right, bottom left, bottom right corners of the state. Although we do get folks who come to some of our events from those areas, and we love to welcome them in. So most of us are based around the Indianapolis Circle. We get together for the watch parties just like any chapter would. We like to help out with Gleaners. That's a food bank out here. That's an event that we do almost every year. We also look for other charity events. We've actually started something a couple of years ago. We initiated a conversation with all the Big Ten chapters, even Ohio State, Michigan State, the presidents of those chapters here in Indiana. So we meet every once in a while. We talk about what they're doing, what we're doing, and sometimes we can invite each other to each other's events. And we also look for opportunities of how can we, what ideas do they have to get more members involved.
Yeah, that's great when you're partnering with the other Big Ten schools and having conversations with them. I understand you have to slow down when you're talking to Ohio State folks and so that they fully understand it. But great work out there.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, Todd, we always have a good time when we come out to Bloomington. Unfortunately, we couldn't come out 2 years ago because of the COVID season. I remember a few years before that, we were at Oliver Winery.
Yeah.
Beautiful place to spend an evening with Penn Staters. So especially given that we couldn't come out 2 years ago, it's been 4 years since we've been to Bloomington. What's the excitement level like for Penn Staters going into Saturday?
Well, it probably dampened just a little bit with last weekend's loss. Although I have to say, I was pleasantly surprised for at least a couple quarters. I didn't think we would do as well as we did with Ohio State, but again, pleasantly surprised. The team showed some real spunk and some good fortitude. I think they're going to come out with a big win. I think they're going to be angry, knowing what they have left in front of them for the rest of the season. So I definitely feel a 10-win season coming on. And I was actually collecting numbers today for number of people going to the game through the ticket offering that we had, and number of people going to the Friday night mixer tomorrow night, and it's going to be big.
That's great. We're looking forward to tapping into the energy when we go out to Indiana. You have your watch parties that you talked about at a place that we know well and love at Hoagies and Hops, which is owned by a Penn State alumna. What does that connection say about the Penn State network and being able to have your event at a place that's so authentically Pennsylvania?
Yeah, it's a cool place. It sounds like you guys have been there. It's in the Broad Ripple area. That's an area inside of the Indianapolis Circle. It's called Broad Ripple, and it's called Hoagies and Hops. And you can go in there and you can see things on the menu like I'm not sure about scrapple, but you can see like liverwurst and Lebanon bologna and things like that. But cheesesteaks, all kinds of hoagies, cheese and bacon fries, and it's owned by Christina Mazza. It's Mazza, and Christina does a great job. Sometimes catering some of our events, and it's just worked out lately that we've been able to have our events there. And of course, when we're there, we, the Penn State group from here, watching a game, and then sometimes we see people come in with Penn State gear on, and they don't even know us. I see somebody's typing about a Scrapple reference. And they don't even know that we were there, but they come walking in their Penn State gear just because Christina's shop is a Pennsylvania theme. She's got things like the Philadelphia Flyers and the Eagles and the Phillies, the Steelers, some other Penn State and Pennsylvania memorabilia, but she's got Penn State stuff all over her shop as well. So really cool place and great lady to work with, to partner with for our watch parties.
Absolutely, Todd. Tell the story about how you originally got connected with Christina and how this partnership grew. Like you mentioned, just a couple blocks from Butler University there in Indianapolis. Talk about that, how that connection came about.
Yeah, I might preface that just a little bit with how I even got connected with the Penn State group out here. I moved out here in 2002. And I just happened to call a buddy of mine and said on a Saturday, I didn't have anything else to do or I wasn't doing any work or anything. So I said, do you want to go to a bar and watch the Penn State game? Went to the bar and I'm sitting there and I see 3 and 4 and 5 Penn State dressed people walk by while I'm sitting in the bar. I was like, wow, that's weird. I don't know why they're all going back there. So I went back into the room and I poked my head in the room and there was like 25, 30 people in there, and somebody looked at me and said hello, and I said, what is this? And they said, it's the Penn State alumni group. That's how I originally got connected with them, probably in 2004. and been working with them ever since. I became chapter president just about 2 years ago. And during the time that I was there, in the last couple of years, we've been starting to hook up and work with Christina more for catering events and going to her shop even more. And it just became, it just was a natural fit. You got all this Pennsylvania themed, Penn State themed things going on in her shop. So why not, and not only that, but it helps her for us to support her business and get her name out there. So it's just a great fit. It's a mutually beneficial relationship. So why not?
Penn Staters, if you're flying into Indianapolis International, it's about 20 minutes out of the way for you because it's going in the opposite direction, but it's well worth the detour to go to Hoagies and Hops. So check out Christina Maz's place there.
It's just a little hook to the right, and then you have to go south from the airport. You just hook a little bit to the east and go down, and you'll still get there on time.
Yeah.
So Todd, as you mentioned, you've been living in Indiana for a while now. Both personally, professionally, socially, how has the Indiana chapter impacted you and kind of, made you feel a little bit at home out there in Indianapolis?
Oh, I mean, they're great. Anytime that you get the chance to talk with fellow Penn Staters and alum, everybody's face lights up. I wear my Penn State gear all the time, and my wife is a Purdue graduate, and she loves it, but she kind of hates it at times when we are out just milling about and we run into a Penn Stater. And, somebody who says they want to talk to me about Penn State stuff, or I'm probably tired of it. I'm like, no, bring it on. I'll tell you anything you want to know. So the chapter's been good. I did volunteer to help out with the president role, like I said, about 2 years ago. And my wife and I also do a lot of volunteer activities with other things and other charities. So it's just kind of a natural partnership for us as well.
Todd, how was the household about 9 weeks ago with the Purdue grad?
It was not a happy ride home. I organized the group and the tickets to the Purdue game. And actually, I got to give a shout out to Purdue. They did a great job of helping us out with getting our tickets. We had some 250 people buy tickets through our link. And of course, she's saying that she's surrounded by all these Penn State people, but I had to tell her, well, all of us were surrounded by all these Purdue people.
Right.
And I seriously thought through the third and half of the fourth quarter, there was no way that we were winning this game. And she even said something like maybe there was a tear in my eye. I'm not sure. I think it was something else. But when Penn State threw that touchdown with 57 seconds left, I kind of went like this, and I kind of like, I better not. And we actually had another friend of ours who's a Purdue graduate with us go as well. So it's an hour and a half drive back home. It was a very quiet ride home.
Yeah, Jeff Brom only has his foot on the gas pedal and should have pumped the brakes a couple times there in the fourth quarter. But we benefit from that. So
a little bit of clock management, I think, would have helped him a lot. But I will say that I had two daughters that graduated the last couple of years from Penn State. We had an RV that we traveled to the games, and my wife just loves to buy Penn State stuff. So she's a big supporter.
Todd, how can Penn Staters learn more about the Indiana chapter and support your efforts?
Yeah, I think the best way is if you go to Facebook and just type in Penn State, Indiana, 3 words, Penn State, Indiana. You could also type in the Indiana chapter of Penn State. Either way, you should be able to find us, but Penn State, Indiana would be the easiest way. We put our events out there, whatever's going on, and we kind of have some dialogue. We tell you where we're going to be, what the next event is that's coming up. So that's probably the easiest way, and you can get in touch with us that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll drop that information in the chat so you can just click and go right there. Todd, we were talking a little bit earlier this week, working in the IT industry, 35 plus years, that was your focus here at Penn State as a student. And as you said, not everyone who goes to college, they don't necessarily go into that career field that they studied in, but you did. What's been the impact of that Penn State education and the alumni network for you professionally?
I remember even today, I'm not a programmer. I'm not a developer anymore. I used to do that when I first came out of school for about the first 5 or 6 or probably more like 8 or 9 years. And then I moved into project management and then IT project management. And I've been doing that ever since. But there's a lot of times where I'm talking with a developer or a software team, and they'll say something, and it just takes me back so quickly to all the hours that I spent in the computer building at Penn State. It's up near East Halls, or at least it used to be. I'm not sure if that's where the situation is anymore. It's probably all virtual now. But, I was there when, if anybody of my generation would remember, when you used to have cards, computer stack of cards, and that's how you fed it into the mainframe. And then we switched over to just all terminals. So it takes me back a lot to some of the teachers that I had, the friends that I had, going from just learning a little bit about computers in high school, because when I was, I think, junior, we got our first computer, and learning a little bit there, and then going to the college environment, to the Penn State environment. And my first teacher was somebody who had reprogrammed computers in Russia and things like that. It was just a really eye-opening experience, and I was hooked on it. There wasn't anything else I was going to do.
All right, Todd, let's end on a fun one. What's your prediction for the game on Saturday?
I was all ready for this. 38-10. I think Penn State,
right? 38-10 us, right?
38-10 Lions, absolutely.
Right. Excellent. Well, hey, Todd, we appreciate you coming on Football Letter Live. Thanks for all you do in terms of your service back to Penn State and to the Alumni Association. And we'll see you tomorrow night.
We'll be at the Crazy Horse tomorrow night. And if you guys come on in, or whoever comes in, find me. It's not that big of a room. You'll find me.
Absolutely. All right. Take care, Todd.
I appreciate you.
Yeah, looking forward to going to the Crazy Horse for that event. They always do a great job. John, you mentioned the places that we went on previous visits to the Oliver Winery, and look forward to this new venue now in Bloomington. If the event gets over, a little bit early, there might be an opportunity to go check out the second half of the men's soccer game. Penn State men's soccer taking on the Indiana Hoosiers on Friday night. So for fans who are heading out after a great night celebrating at Crazy Horse, head over to the soccer stadium and cheer on the Nittany Lions.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's has to be on the itinerary, right? So that'll be fun. The Crazy Horse right next to the Irish Lion, a great place. We could go right down the list. So it'll be a fun night tomorrow night. Looking forward to getting into Bloomington, seeing the stadium, seeing downtown. For folks who have never been to the Bloomington campus, I've talked with so many people who say it's the campus that's most similar to University Park. And so you'll feel almost like you're at home walking around Bloomington. So if you haven't been out there, certainly on your travel list. So we're going to talk with somebody who knows what it's like playing in Bloomington, knows what it's like playing in the Big Ten. Letterman safety, Anthony Scarrato, number 7 for the Nittany Lions, 2009 Penn State grad, Big Ten champion, earned all Big Ten status twice as a safety. I don't know what it is. We've had a lot of defensive backs on the show this year, and so I don't know if that's the way we planned it, but Anthony, we're going to keep that going. We'll ask him what he's up to now and how the impact of an alumni network has helped him, just like it has helped Todd. He's a regional sales manager living in New Jersey, where we've got a huge contingent of alumni. Anthony Scarrato, welcome to Football Letter Live. We're thrilled to have you tonight, sir. I was going to ask you how you're doing. Your Phillies are in the World Series, so
Yeah, we're doing really well over here right now. A tough game last night, actually. I was lucky enough to be in attendance.
Oh, wow.
And it was a really cool experience. My throat's a little scratchy from screaming a little bit, so I apologize in advance. But I have my Penn State cup to take a sip of, to keep it fresh for you guys. So thanks for having me on here.
Absolutely. Hey, let me take a little bit of a detour here, John. Anthony, I'm a baseball fan, but I don't watch a lot of Major League Baseball, right?
Yeah.
But I tuned in for the whole game last night. Pitcher for the Astros, 6 innings of no-hit ball, and they take him out of the game. Like, has Major League Baseball lost their soul with the analytics? How do you take a guy who's throwing a no-hitter in the World Series out of the game?
I think they're just in a very what's the word I'm looking for? Maybe the situation with their bullpen affords them the ability to do that, and that is also very beneficial to these starting pitchers. If you know that you only have to throw 70 to 80 pitches a game, right, and you can deal your best for those 70, 80 pitches, and when you come out, your bullpen has your back. I think that helps the pitchers, that helps the coaching staff make these decisions, stretch out their starting pitchers through like grueling playoffs, right? 7-game series. I think their bullpen is just so deep that it affords them the ability to do that. So,
Yeah, it's just maybe in the division series, this is the last game this guy's going to pitch
yeah.
all year, though, right? So, anyway, let's talk Penn State football. Sorry, John.
No, you're good. I mean, I didn't mention this in his intro, but Anthony was drafted in the Major League Baseball draft, and so that's not a detour. That's a really good setup for later on in the interview. But yes, Anthony Scarrato, all Big Ten safety, Penn State football. We were talking a little bit earlier, during your recruiting process, and you were looking for colleges. Where did you want to be a student athlete? What about Penn State stood out to you about the university, and also from the coach's recruiting message to you?
Yeah, I think honestly the biggest thing for me is it felt like home. I was fortunate enough. I was recruited from a few Big Ten schools, but some other schools and other conferences throughout the country. And my parents were a big piece in the recruiting process for me. But when I went there, I had met Coach Paterno at a football banquet in high school, and they had just offered me. And it just so happened the timing worked out perfectly, where there was an award ceremony, some kind of South Jersey football award, and Coach Paterno was the keynote speaker. And he brought my mom, my dad, my siblings up into his room at that hotel that we were staying at. And it was just a comfort thing, I think. And then from there, like I said, I did my visits, and I would always come back to Penn State, whether it were just to come see a game for a different camp. And then I had the opportunity. I took my official visit. It was a place where I could grow up and become a man, right? And learn a lot of lessons, play big time football, have my own life, but close enough for my family, who was a big part of my life and my development, right? To be involved. So 4 hours away, 3.5 hour drive. They could get to every game. They didn't have to fly anywhere. It was, big support thing for me. So,
yeah, you mentioned you come to Penn State. You came here at a pivotal time for both the football program and for Coach Joe Paterno, coming off a few, how should we say it, unusual seasons for the team in the early 2000s. When you arrived on campus, what was the vibe surrounding Penn State football?
Yeah, and I think that also played a factor into my decision to go there. I was a lot of us coming out of high school, when you're being recruited and you're going throughout the process, you recognize like, hey, you have talent to be able to play at the next level, which is collegiate sports, right? But what you don't realize is when you get there, everyone is that talented. So for me, when they were struggling, I thought, hey, I'm going to come in, and this was through conversations with the coaching staff and Coach Vanderlinden, who recruited me. You have an opportunity to play right away, and that was a big piece of the puzzle for me. Like, I wanted to be able to impact in a positive way as much as I can, as quickly as I could. So their struggles, which again, they were few and far between, led to me taking the leap. And at the same time, we just the coaching staff had just done a really, really good job recruiting some big time talent. I mean, shortly after, I remember hearing Justin King signing, and then Derek Williams, and then my first college roommate, Lydell Sargent, he signed out from California. So they were pulling in a ton of recruits in my class. Sean Lee, I mean, and it was a very eye-opening time, because when we walked in that locker room, we quickly realized that the senior class was probably not, if not one of the most talented teams, but just one of the closest knit groups. And from a leadership standpoint, they were the real deal. And we latched on to them, and they opened their arms up to us, being young men coming in, freshmen, most of us, and really brought us along for the ride.
Anthony, let's stick with this topic just for another couple questions. You mentioned the senior leadership group. I mean, 2005, go on to win the Big Ten, two-time Big Ten champ, freshman season, senior season. What was the level of determination like in that 2005 season, going into fall camp, looking around, seeing the talent, and knowing that, this could be a championship team?
Yeah, we knew it. We knew that the talent was there, and I think we were they were coming off of a 3-9 season. I think maybe 4-8, 3-9, but that was the position that they wanted to be in. That underdog coming out of nowhere. You had guys like Michael Robinson, Calvin Lowry, Alan Zamitis, Tom Bahali. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. I don't know if we started as a ranked team that year. I can't remember. I don't think we did. If we were really high up in the rankings. But quickly, I feel like the entire nation realized that, we were the real deal. And that year panned out to, we were one play away from going to the national championship at Michigan. And, those are things you never forget and experiences you never forget. But it was one of the best football teams I've ever been a part of.
Yeah, John, check me if I'm wrong here, but there's only about 30 or 40 Penn State football players that can claim being two-time Big Ten champions, right? It's got to be that class that you came in with, and maybe a couple guys in the class before that were red shirts. But it is a rare claim. I'm right about that, right, John?
Yeah, it's an exclusive club.
Absolutely. And you mentioned some friends of the program, Lydell Sargent. Welcome home, Lydell Sargent, now on the staff here at Penn State just in the past month or so. So we're excited to welcome him back here to Happy Valley. Your senior season, 2008, you win the Big Ten title. You go to the Rose Bowl. Talk about that experience.
Yeah, again, it's one that you never forget. Our junior year was underwhelming. I think my junior year, we thought we were, it was a good year, but we came off of some adversity, going into that season. And we came together as a team. We had a ton of seniors, like I was talking about previously, that all stuck around for their fourth year. So we didn't lose a lot of guys that year to the draft that were in my class. And we felt the same way that we had the same feeling and felt the same way we did when we came in as freshmen. We felt like we had that type of team, that close-knit team that could really make a run if we all worked together, right? And we had the talent. We had young talent. We had guys coming in left and right from all over the country that wanted to be a part of it because they knew that we had something special going on that year. And they played pivotal roles, in the success of that team as well. So it was a special year. If you can see in my background, that's me and Lydell hugging, roses in our hands right after the Michigan State game. It was our senior game. And hangs in my home office. I see it every day. It's something that I will never forget about, and a memory I'll take with me, for a lifetime. So,
Anthony, as you mentioned, kind of like the role was flipped for you personally. 2005, you come in as a freshman. 2008, you're a senior. That 2008 senior season, how much did you lean on your experience as a freshman and maybe learning lessons from Michael Robinson, from Tom Bahali, from some of those guys you mentioned?
Yeah, I think it goes a long way, and I think you're seeing it now with kids coming in and just playing, their first year, right? I don't think anything beats experience, right? You can have all the talent in the world, but you really don't know what it's like until you've walked down that path, right? And it's a different game when you get up here, and being able to go through that my freshman year. Go through ups and downs, tough season. I remember my freshman year, one of the turning points for us when we really felt like this was it. This is going to be our year, was an away game at Northwestern. And it was a close game. We were down. I think we came back Mike threw a touchdown pass on a 7 route to Derek, last play of the game, very end of the game. And I played a lot of special teams, a little bit of defense in that game as well. Just little things like that help build your confidence, right? That's a big part of this game. It's being confident, believing in yourself, believing in the guys next to you, and knowing that you can get it done. And there's nothing like walking on that field as a freshman, young man, playing against some big. I was running down trying to block AJ Hawk at Ohio State on a punt return. I was 18 years old. I had no reason, like I should not have been on that field. But, the next year, there was really nothing. My sophomore year, my first year starting, if I don't know if it would have had the same season if I didn't have those experiences from my freshman year.
So Anthony, you were talking a little bit about kind of like leadership, and we were talking with Todd about, that Penn State experience staying with you. Personally, professionally, how did your time at Penn State kind of, set you up for success after football? And are there some life lessons that you still carry with you to this day?
Yeah, I think I wouldn't be where I am right now if it wasn't for Penn State. One of my teammates actually landed me this job with Stryker. I've been with Stryker since I've graduated from school. Actually, 2010, I came back to school after leaving to try, playing professionally for a year and a half. And I did an internship with Stryker, and Ross Muir, who's an offensive lineman there, he was a year or two older than me. He was a sales rep for the company. And he hooked me up with this job. I had no idea what I wanted to do coming out of school. I had no idea this job existed. But it was a perfect fit for me. This is a very competitive industry. And I had a little bit of a science background and some interest in being a kinesiology major in the health and wellness industry. So wound up being perfect. And like I said, if it weren't for Ross, I wouldn't know this existed. And just some life lessons I learned, I think, especially for this job. I work with Stryker in the trauma and orthopedic, division. And I don't know what you guys know about trauma, but it's a 24/7 grind. You're on call 7 days a week. You work holidays, you work weekends, you work weeknights as a sales rep. And you have to be able to control the chaos. You have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. If I wasn't a student athlete, and I think a lot of me being able to handle adversity and just life in general, right? It all stems from my experience being one at Penn State and being a student athlete. It's just something that you don't realize your responsibilities are low, right? As a high school student, you get into college and then all of a sudden, boom, very regimented. It's nonstop. You're held to a high standard in the classroom. You're held to a high standard on the football field. And, it's very demanding. And it really led me to being pretty successful in my career with Stryker, and landed me, a promotion where I get to, take a step back from that chaos now and manage a team of sales reps and spend a little bit more time with my family. So it's really, it played an integral part in my development, both, professionally and personally.
Yeah, outside of the quarterback, right? The defensive backs probably are amongst the most visible in a college football game, right? Because if they're playing great, they're making plays. If they're making mistakes, right, those mistakes lead to 6 points, right? So you've been on that island, right? You've been the last line of defense, which sounds like those situations on the field have prepared you for success off the field.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll never forget. You're right. I always said, being a safety, and I was a quarterback in high school, right? I played both ways. We played a lot of the times we played both ways in high school. I played quarterback, I played defensive back, and coming into college, the safety, me and the linebacker, we were running the show, calling the plays for the most part. controlling the secondary, making the checks. You're right in the middle of the field. You see everything, from the center outside. So being in those situations, being able to command, a team and take control and make decisions on the fly and run around a little bit, have some fun. I think it definitely plays a big factor into developing as a professional and adult.
Yeah, a lot of lettermen who come on the show who play for Joe Paterno have a great Joe Paterno story. So, what is your Joe Paterno story?
There's so many of them. The two things that I remember most about my relationship with Coach Paterno, one, we had that little bit of Italian connection, right? Like he was my guy, my paisan. And I always felt like even afterwards, like, and that's everyone. It's everyone. You can ask anyone. He always had your best interest just as a person in front of mine. But two things and stories I can think of. One just shows his toughness and grit, and it was pretty crazy. We were I forget what week it was. It was my senior year. We were in practice. We were running just one-on-ones, and he's standing he was always in the middle of everything, always in the middle of it. Even when he had his couple injuries, he's in the cart in the middle of it, and half the time he's trying to crawl out of the golf cart to get in the middle of it. So he's standing back in the secondary, and Andrew Corliss runs a skinny post, and him and a linebacker doing a one-on-one. They don't see Joe, and next thing you know, one of the biggest collisions I saw in my entire college football career was Coach Paterno, Andrew Corliss, and I forget the linebacker that was covering at the time. And it was not a pretty sight. And it was loud. I mean, Andrew went flying probably farther than Coach Joe. And he's down on the ground. They're both down on the ground. Everybody's running over and trying to help him up. And he's just screaming, "Get off me, get off me. I'm fine, get off." And that hit would have took anybody else out. I mean, it would have knocked him out. And he was just always so tough and gritty and right in the middle of it. And very involved, especially in the practice field. And then the second story I remember most is actually after I was done playing. I went back and I asked him if he would be one of my references, on my resume for a job search. And I'll never forget, he looked at me and said, "Anthony, I'm glad you asked. I would absolutely be a reference. Make sure you put my information on there. But just remember one thing. Remember what you represent. Remember who you represent." And that has stuck with me, I know it's 13 years ago now. So something that's always resonated with me. I'll never forget that. And I hold that close to me, for everything that I do. So.
Anthony, two great stories. Thanks for sharing. Two stories that kind of, embody, Joe Paterno on the field, off the field.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of sticking with that, a little bit, kind of carrying that Penn State experience with you. So you're in New Jersey. Outside of Pennsylvania, New Jersey is where we have our largest contingent of Penn State alumni, almost 35,000. I'm just curious, how often do you run into Penn Staters, during your day, and kind of like, does that take you back to your playing days at all? And, maybe what's that experience like when you run into people who say, I saw you play at Beaver Stadium, and takes you back a little bit, maybe?
Yeah. I mean, we're everywhere. We are everywhere. And I don't think you realize it till you go out, and it doesn't matter where you're at. I think, especially in New Jersey, it's almost like the home team here. You have Temple, major college football. I mean, Rutgers, but when I was growing up, it was Penn State. It was like that was the spot, that was the team. And honestly, the job I'm in, we recruit a lot of pro athletes, college athletes. Again, looking for that competitive nature, and hard work and grit. At one point, you would think that it was a Penn State locker room in our branch in Delaware Valley. I think we had 7 or 8 guys from Penn State that played football in our company, and and even that didn't play football but were engineer majors. Like when I came on, one of our general managers of orthopedics was an engineer major, like in the 80s at Penn State. We had Tyler Velowski, he played defensive line. Mickey Schuler, he was in my class. He's one of my best friends. After he was done playing, I brought him on. Ross Muir, like I said, was there. I think even Derek for a short period of time I don't know if he was with Stryker, but he was in the industry, and not far from the area. So I think, it's been great. The support, it was always throughout my entire career. Even now, when they're playing, it's a big deal. It has been for a long time. I don't see it going in. I see it just growing. So.
Yeah, Anthony, we like to ask players from different generations. Now that college football has changed so much, right? We're in this era of name, image, and likeness where something that was illegal when you were a player is now commonplace. Mm-hmm. So who would have been the sponsor of Anthony Scarrato? If you had a name, image, and likeness contract, is it Bradley's Cheesesteaks? Is it Susie Wong's?
It could have been. It could have been. I would have definitely gone for like a Jim's or like a Pat's King of Steaks out here in Philly. Done something over here. Tony Luke's maybe. I don't know. It definitely. It's so crazy to even think about it. But my guys and I, when we get together and we talk, it's definitely something we bring. You remember, well, what if we had that opportunity, or what if, but these guys are, I think it's deserved. I think that they earn it. They definitely do. They put in the time. It's hard to really recognize how much dedication and time it takes to do this. And so I think, hey, if you can go on and make some money and do well for yourself, your family, while you're playing a sport and managing classroom, go ahead,
Absolutely. John, he surprised me with that answer. He went regional or national, right? He's thinking big picture outside of State College. I'm thinking Stickies, and he's thinking Tony Luke's.
I'm thinking, exactly.
His picture at the airport, right? When you're coming through the E-terminal. So
exactly.
Well, Anthony, we want to thank you for your time tonight. Really enjoyed talking with you. Thanks for sharing those stories. It seems like every time we wrap an interview with a Letterman, we say we got to have you back on next season. I think that there are some things, we want to get your thoughts on, and I think it's good to leave a little bit for the next time you're on. It's like, let's have Anthony Scarrato back on the show. And so, Anthony Scarrato, 2-time Big Ten champ, very exclusive club, proud Penn State Letterman. Thanks for coming on the show tonight, Anthony. Appreciate it.
No, thank you guys for having me. It's been a pleasure. I'd love to come back. You guys let me know, and we'll make it happen for sure.
All right. Go Phils.
Yeah, go Phils. Go Lions. Let's go. 10-2. Finish it out.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks, Anthony. Appreciate you.
Anthony.
All right, guys. Take care.
That's another great interview with a Letterman, 2-time Big Ten champion, 2-time All Big Ten safety, right? That's rarefied air here in Happy Valley.
Yeah, and Lido Sargent, shout out. Hey, impressive Nittany Lions, hang out with impressive Nittany Lions. That's how it works. And so, yeah, great to have Lido back at Penn State. Great to talk with Anthony. A lot of defensive firepower on the show this season.
Absolutely, John. We should set up a referral system, though, right? Because I'm thinking, all right, Anthony, he mentioned Lydell, he mentioned Sean Mayer, right? Which we would love to have on the show. Mickey Schuler. So we might have to tap into the networks of the guys who are now friends of the program to help line up some future guests.
Right. And that's where Vince takes you and I outside of the studio, and we just sit here and we listen to these guys, tell their stories, and, they forget that we're even here.
I do think we need, if we start to shake it up in season 4 of Football Letter Live, we might need to think about having 2 Lettermen on at the same time, maybe Scarrato and Corliss, right? And Andrew can talk about how much pass interference and how much they got away with in practice. And let's just watch those guys go at each other, right? Some of the guys in the trenches.
Yeah, no doubt. And we'll take suggestions from the audience tuning in. And so, share your ideas. It sounds like we're going to get greenlit for season 4. So that sounds good. But yeah, it's one of those things that's, we're looking at Letterman to bring on the show. And it's like, we come up with like 40, 50, 60 names. It's like almost, you think about like, how often do you hear about a Letterman doing something really cool and impressive, just like Anthony? And it's sort of, it seems like only one per week we might be limiting ourselves, or we might have to up that up.
Yeah. You think of all the connections that they make, right? There's about 100 guys on a college football roster. They probably, over the 4 years that they're here, right, develop relationships with 150, 200 other Penn State football players. So that's, that's part of the power of the Penn State network.
But we could do like daytime TV where it's like, then we just bring in Spider out of nowhere and he just like starts telling stories. And, it's like, they're telling a story about a teammate and we've got him waiting in the wings and we bring him on.
We're going to talk ourselves out of jobs, John.
Yeah, I was going to say, we just need to bring on Vince
and Spider and just let them do it.
That's okay. That's okay with that. Once in a while.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to get Wally Pipp. You're the guy who fills out the lineup card. So I think we'll be okay.
That's right. All right, John, let's go ahead and bring Vincent Longaro on, our wonderful producer, back this week. Vincent, a lot going on in Penn State athletics around campus.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And before I dive into that, I have to give a shout out to Anthony for the Italian reference. That was part of the reason I loved Penn State so much. What growing up was the number of Italians and Anthony Morelli, Anthony Scarato. So being able to have him here on the show was pretty special for me. Growing up from
Anthony
an Italian
Morelli reference.
That's right. Go. Paul Cianciolo. Just so many Italians. Dom DeLuca carrying the torch now. That's why he's probably my favorite player on the team. Anyway, back on track. Really, really busy week for Penn State athletics. Women's soccer, big win tonight, defeating Northwestern in Columbus for the Big Ten tournament. They'll take on the regular season champions Michigan State on Sunday in the title game. Men's soccer, as you mentioned, Paul, will be in Bloomington tomorrow for the Big Ten tournament, taking on a powerhouse program in Indiana. And then, of course, women's volleyball last night back on track after 2 tough losses, defeating Maryland in 4 sets. The field hockey team, congratulations to them. They were Big Ten regular season co-champs. They'll be the number 1 seed in the Big Ten tournament as well, which I also think for field hockey is in Columbus. It seems like, I don't know why everything's in Columbus this year. So shout out to them. So men's basketball, women's basketball starting next week. Men's basketball plays Winthrop at home on Monday. The women host Norfolk State on Wednesday. So wrestling right around the corner. Hockey's in full swing. The men are 8-0. So it's hard to believe that we're in full swing already. I feel like we were just starting out with, women's soccer kind of got the fall sports season underway in August, and here we are. Seems like everybody's in action now.
How about that? Men's hockey 8-0 after being disrespected by the rest of the Big Ten, picked to finish last. Guy Godowski has something up his sleeve this year.
Yeah, it seems like they're playing with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, going out to Wisconsin and sweeping that series. I think sets a precedent for the rest of the Big Ten that, hey, you might have picked us to finish in the bottom, but I don't think that's going to be the case. And as always with Guy Godowski, teams are going to bring a lot of heart to the game. So should be an exciting season ahead for them as well.
Yeah, hockey players, a chip on their shoulder, probably a chip on their tooth, right? They're fun to watch, and we'll be following them throughout the winter. Vince, a lot of chapters gathering last week for the big game against Ohio State, and the watch party. Some of the videos, some of the pictures we got were crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I feel like we say this to end the show every week, but the job our chapters do for football watch parties are just incredible, and other events that they do, I'm sure are terrific. But yeah, if you're a part of a chapter or group and you've got a watch party, be sure to tag us on social media before the game on Saturday, after the game, during the game. We'd love to share them on our Instagram story, on Facebook, Twitter, wherever we can. So yeah, shout out to our chapter and affiliate groups. They've just been doing an awesome job this football season, and obviously looking forward to getting down to Bloomington this week. My second trip to Bloomington. I was there in 2016, but didn't stick around much. So I'm looking forward to John. John has talked up Bloomington a lot, so I'm looking forward to getting down there. There's
a lot of fun to be had in Bloomington. It's a great college town. There's a lot of fun to be had after we win in Bloomington too. So, Vince, thanks for all you're doing for the Alumni Association, and looking forward to a great trip.
Yep, sounds great. Thanks, Paul.
Yeah, we also had a big weekend here, John, with our volunteers in town for Alumni Council, and a staple of the Alumni Council weekend on Friday night is our opportunity to say thank you to our volunteers and recognize some of the high-performing affiliate groups that we have here. Recognized, I think, 15 groups and 4 individuals with our annual award.
Yeah, it's a big night for volunteers, and then also selfishly, it's a big night for us because we love to see their reaction. We love to be in a position to put the spotlight on them, and so we shared the archived live stream Tuesday in Alumni Insider. We're also going to share it again Saturday in the game day email that will go out. We've shared it on our social media channels, so you can go in, you can see the entire ceremony. It's about 45-50 minutes. The recipients, they talk about how they're giving back to their communities, the impact that Penn State has had on them personally, professionally, very much like Todd and Anthony did tonight. And so volunteer awards, one of the big nights for us here at the Alumni Association, and certainly wanted to share that experience with everyone else. So that'll be coming in the game day email on Saturday. And then this shouldn't be surprising. Next week's episode, another defensive back, David Macklin, will be on the show. And so carrying the torch for the defensive backs, David Macklin will be on, and Chris Mason will be on. That name probably doesn't sound familiar to you, but the last name might. Chris Mason, the grandson of Joe Mason, who is credited with the creation of the Nittany Lion mascot. It was just pure dumb luck that I ran into him this summer, and we'll tell that story next week. We'll have Chris on the show next week, and so certainly a lot coming your way Saturday with the game day email, football letter email going Monday, and then certainly we'll have another good show for you next week talking about the Roar Tour and the game at Indiana.
John, just a couple minutes before 8 o'clock, we want to make sure we get our audience in the Philadelphia area back to see the first pitch of the Phillies. Eagles play tonight on Thursday Night Football. A lot of people switching back and forth between the channels. So thank you all for tuning in to Football Letter Live, and for all you do for the university, for the glory, and for the future. We are
Penn State.